Welcome to United States News. Here are some of our top stories. Russia gives Ukraine until March 21 to surrender the besieged city of Mariupol. Threat of nuclear destruction at 40% as Putin could kill thousands in last-ditch attack. Russia has given Ukraine until the early hours of March 21 to surrender the besieged city of Mariupol, according to a Russian state news agency. Russian Colonel General Mikhail Mizintsev, head of the Russian National Defense Control Center, has given his counterparts until 5 a.m. Moscow time, 2 a.m. GMT, to respond to his ultimatum, RIA reports. According to the state-controlled media outlet, the Ministry of Defense wants to receive a written response from Kyiv to these proposals before 5 a.m. Separately, the department appealed to the authorities of Mariupol, noting that now they have the right to make a historical choice. Either they are with their people or with the bandits. Otherwise, they face a military tribunal, the Russian ministry stressed. While the threat is slightly unclear, it appears the Russians are demanding that fighters in Mariupol surrender. Moscow has claimed that the Ukrainian army has been using civilians as human shields during the conflict. In reality, the invading Russian forces have been bombarding built-up civilians' areas at such a pace that most residents were unable to escape before the bombs began to fall. Threat of nuclear destruction at 40% as Putin could kill thousands in last-ditch attack. A war analyst has warned there is currently a 40% chance of nuclear destruction as Vladimir Putin could launch a desperate attack on NATO. Harry Kazianis, an expert on U.S. foreign policy and national security issues, said that the current crisis has put the world in a dangerous situation. Speaking to Express.co.uk, he said, "For a living, I literally do war game scenarios. And when we get to this point in a potential NATO-Russia clash, there's about a 40% chance that it ends up being a war and a nuclear exchange. So that's how dangerous this all really is." Mr. Kazianis described the current crisis as being worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the most dangerous periods of the Cold War, warning that if NATO and Russia start shooting at each other, war game scenarios always show it escalating into a nuclear war. The expert, who is an analyst at the U.S. think tank Center for National Interest, said, "This may actually be worse than the Cuban Missile Crisis because of the amount of weaponry and egos and historical tension all packaged into one. In terms of nuclear war, the most likely scenario is that NATO and Russia start shooting at each other. Every war game I've ever done, every time NATO and Russia get into an armed conflict, every single time it becomes a nuclear war. There's no question. The reason why is because the Russians do not have, in a conventional sense, a way to beat the United States or NATO. It's impossible. Their force structure isn't ready to do that. They look tough, but there's no way they can beat the combined might of the United States and European Union. It's impossible. So what the Russians have done in all their military strategy is something called escalate to de-escalate. All that means is they would use smaller, tactical nuclear weapons to try and even the playing field, so these could be bombs that would be maybe 1/15 to 1/10 the size of bombs that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Not big stuff, but still nuclear weapons. It could still kill a whole armored division. They could kill thousands of people in one shot. And this is what the Russians would try to do to get us to back off. The problem is that in every scenario we've ever run, NATO responds with bigger nuclear weapons, which the Russians respond with bigger nuclear weapons, and we basically all become radioactive goo." Mr. Kazianis outlined a number of other scenarios that could lead to a nuclear escalation, such as the death of US or UK civilians, or Russian missiles landing in NATO territory. But the experts said that there were 100 scenarios that could lead to nuclear war. This comes just weeks after Putin put Russia's nuclear deterrence forces on high alert, accusing NATO of aggressive statements. A week after Putin began his invasion of Ukraine in February, the president said, "Senior officials of the leading NATO countries also allow aggressive statements against our country, therefore I order the Minister of Defense and the Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces to transfer the deterrence forces of the Russian army to a special mode of combat duty. Western countries aren't only taking unfriendly actions against our country in the economic sphere, but top officials from leading NATO members made aggressive statements regarding our country." The US described the escalation as totally unacceptable. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe, and do not forget to hit the notification bell so you keep receiving the latest news from United States News Channel. Bye bye.